Welcome to this presentation on the nature of groups. Sometimes it's a little trickier to decide whether a collection of people constitute a group than you might think. In my classes, I often ask the students in the class, are we a group? And some of the students feel very strongly that we are in fact a group. Others are not so sure, especially if it's a large lecture style class where there's not a lot of interacting going on. So when psychologists define a collection of people as a group, there are a couple of things that they look at. First of all, do people have a sense of belonging? If you feel like you are part of a group, then in fact you may very well be. If you do not have a sense of belonging, odds are that the collection of people that you are a part of is not really a group in the psychological sense of the term. Also, the individuals in the group have interdependent fates. What that means is that what happens to one person in the group has some implications for what happens to other people in the group. So using one of my classes as an example, if I decide suddenly that there's going to be an extra assignment that has to be done, I'm not just giving that to one or two people in the class, I'm giving it to the whole class. So what happens to one individual is also happening to other individuals. That's what interdependent fates mean. Thirdly, there needs to be some degree of interaction among the members. If people are not in communication with each other and interacting socially, whether they constitute a group or not becomes much more murky. That's one of the reasons why I think my large lecture classes are not often perceived as a group, because on most days there's not a whole lot of interaction going on among the students in the class. And finally, groups have shared norms and goals. All of the people in the group are after the same thing. They're trying to accomplish the same goals, and they have a shared sense of what the rules are for how they should deal with each other, how they should carry on the life of the group. So, when psychologists talk about a group, they're talking about a collection of individuals, two or more people, who have this sense of belonging, who have interdependent fates, have some degree of interaction among them, and share norms and goals. All groups have some sort of structure. Group structure is defined as the pattern of relationships among the different positions in the group. So if we're talking about the formal group structure of a work group, for example, you could look at the organizational chart and it tells you which employees answer to which supervisors, and it tells you which people are responsible for which jobs and what the chain of command in the organization is. So sometimes group structures can be very formal. So an organizational chart can give us a picture of a group's formal structure, but groups also have informal structures that result from the pattern of social interaction among the individuals in the group. Sociologists have developed a tool called a sociogram, sometimes called a sociometric diagram, to indicate how the informal structure of a group might work. If I were trying to construct a sociogram for a small group of friends, what I might do is ask each person in the group to name the two individuals in the group that they feel like they're closest friends with, the two people in the group that they like the most. And in this diagram, when you see an arrow pointing from one person to another, that means that individual has chosen that person as somebody they like a lot. If you see an arrow that's pointing in both directions, it means two people mutually chose each other. When you put together a sociogram, you can see that some people have much more influence in the group than others. In the picture you see in this slide, Olivia, for example, is right at the center of the diagram. She is chosen by a lot of people as a person that they like, and there are other individuals, Alina, for example, way out on the right side there, who has not been chosen by that many people as a person that they like or think of as a friend. So you can get a quick look at which individuals probably carry the most influence in the group. A person's social status is the evaluation of the worth of that person's position in the group. So we might think of these individuals like Olivia as being high in social status. Other people like them, they look to them, these people will have influence. Remember that social status is not the same thing as social role. A social role is the set of expected behaviors associated with your position in a group. Social status is how much esteem you get from having that role in the group. And here's yet another example of a sociogram depicting the informal structure of a particular group. Groups can be very different from each other in terms of how cohesive they are. And most of the time, group cohesiveness is a good thing. Group cohesiveness refers to the degree to which the members of the group like each other and trust each other. And certainly in work groups, this is something that you want. It makes things function much more smoothly. But you're also going to see in this part of the course, in this chapter, that a group cohesiveness can sometimes have negative effects. It can make the group less effective as a decision-making body, and it can create obstacles to individuals thinking creatively or thinking individualistically. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in another group of slides. But group cohesiveness increases with a couple of different things. First of all, the more stable the group is, the more cohesive it tends to be. Stability means how consistently does the group have the same members. If you have a group where people are always leaving and new people are coming in and there's constant turnover, that group would be low in stability. On the other hand, a group of individuals who've been together for a while, the same people working together, that would be a highly stable group. Homogeneity tends to increase group cohesiveness. So the more that the people in the group are like each other, be it in age or gender or political views, whatever it may be, typically the more cohesive the group is. Smaller groups tend to be more cohesive than large groups. It's very hard to get a group of 50 people to be very cohesive because there's just too many individuals to manage. Groups also become more cohesive if they feel isolated from other groups or if there's some sort of outside pressure. If there's another group they're competing with or a common enemy of some sort, this will tend to enhance the cohesiveness of the group. In work organizations, cohesiveness usually increases job satisfaction, safety, absenteeism, and turnover. Its production to productivity, however, can go in both directions. Sometimes you can have a very cohesive group where everybody likes each other and they enjoy each other's company, but they're not terribly productive because they're spending too much time socializing and not enough time working. Groups have pretty strong effects on the individuals in the group. In the next set of PowerPoint slides, we're going to find a number of ways in which people are different when they're in a group than when they're by themselves. And we're going to focus on something called social facilitation. We're also going to look at something called social loafing. We'll briefly mention something called social compensation. And we'll spend a fair bit of time talking about the phenomenon of de-individuation.